A battle for House Speaker about to begin.
A live look from the Capitol and the latest about this new legislative session.
And one major issue lawmakers may take a look at this session is your rights as a homeowner. We're taking a closer look at eminent domain and a particular case between Atmos Energy and some local homeowners.
Good afternoon. Temperatures still below normal for this afternoon and again tomorrow, but we will warm up a little bit ahead of an Arctic cold front this weekend. Details coming up.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News at Noon.
Right now, the 89th legislative session in Texas is about to begin. You are taking a live look at a very busy Capitol building today. And any minute now, we will see lawmakers sworn in to both the Senate and the House. Of course, then we're watching closely for the vote for House Speaker.
We are following all of this very closely, as well as that contentious battle for the Speaker's gavel that's really divided Republicans before this session even began. However, KXAN's Barrett Tryon is joining us live again from the state capitol. Barrett, lots of noise there in the rotunda behind you.
Yeah, it's getting a little quieter than it was in the past hour or so, but contentious is a really good word to describe what is about to happen in that House Speaker race. As you mentioned, it is noon. They are set to be sworn in here shortly. Now, you might remember Dade Phelan, the former House Speaker, decided he was not going to run again. So it came down to two candidates, Dustin Burrows and David Cook. Well, Cook ultimately won the House GOP caucus nomination last month, but Burrows decided that he was going to still run, saying he had enough votes from both sides of the aisle. There are caucus rules that say Republicans are supposed to back their nominee, so that's part of the reason why there is so much talk about what is going on. Now, State Representative Caroline Fairley, who is from the Panhandle, is actually one of the first to come out and say she is defecting. I want to read a little portion of her email here that she sent out to the media. I have met in person with both Representative Burrows and Cook. Mr. Cook is a good man, and I am confident we would work together if he becomes Speaker. However, Representative Burrows is more conservative, will provide stronger leadership, and will help the House pass bold conservative legislation. So one of the first really to come out in her freshman year here in the Texas House to come and say that she is throwing her support towards Burrows. So it will just be a matter of time before we see what happens. Back to you guys.
Barrett, something that's often a bit of a procedural vote there that today, of course, may take more time than we're used to seeing. Okay, talk to us about what you've been seeing at the Capitol. We know some leaders within the GOP were saying they were going to have people come to Austin from across the state to make their voice known about being in favor of Representative Cook. So what are you seeing and hearing as people filter into those chamber rooms?
Sure, really hard to not miss them. They're bright red shirts that say no Democratic chairs. They're all over, as you mentioned. They were bussed in from all corners of the state. So they are here. They've been rallying and walking around and just having their voices heard. And long security lines to get into the Capitol because of all those extra people here. Also, obviously, the first day, and parking, also a problem all around the Capitol. So it is very busy, very lively. It's calmed down a little bit as stuff gets ready to kick up underway, but we do have crews inside as well. And I should mention Representative Fairley, I know you'll be talking with her today at 4.
Yes, looking forward to that conversation, especially as we wait to see how that Speaker vote goes.
And as Barrett and Will are mentioning, you do not want to miss later on today, our very own KXAN team, led by Will, will have a full breakdown of this first day in session.
We, of course, will pick up the discussion on whoever will win the House Speaker's race today, as well as some of those big items that we'll be tracking all session and that lawmakers are hoping to pass. You can catch all of that this afternoon on KXAN News at 4.
Some federal lawmakers are joining Texas Governor Greg Abbott's call to raise the flags before President Trump's inauguration on Monday. The flags are currently set to remain at half-staff for the next week to honor the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Texas Congressman Pete Sessions says he and some others filed a bill this week to require the U.S. flag be flown at full height on Inauguration Day. Representative Sessions argued there is precedent for raising the flags even during a time of mourning, noting that in 1973, President Nixon raised the flags after the death of former President Lyndon Johnson to celebrate the release of prisoners of war from Vietnam.
No matter who is president, Republican or Democrat, raise the flag to its highest point in honor because the world is looking at us.
Congressman Sessions acknowledged that bill will likely not be heard in the next week, as President Trump will take office on January 20th.
First warning weather.
On this Tuesday afternoon, let's take a live look at the weather camera atop the KXAN studio there. A gorgeous shot of downtown with some clouds there in the distance. Temperatures, though, warming up very slightly. But, Rich, they are still pretty cold out there for anybody who's venturing out maybe for lunch or to go to the Capitol even.
We're mostly in the 40s right now. We'll climb about 10 more degrees, I think, before we hit our afternoon highs today. But, again, we'll be below normal. Remember all the second half of December above normal? We've been below normal a lot in January. I'm not going to complain about that either. All right, we're still dealing with a good deal of cirrus cloud cover this morning and on into the afternoon. So we're going to call the sky partly to mostly cloudy. There's no rain falling anywhere right now, so we should get through this day rain-free. Here are 12 o'clock temperatures. We're up to 51 at Camp Mabry, 53 at Georgetown, and that looks to be our warmest reading right now. Hill country temperatures are in the mid and upper 40s, but you good people will warm into the 50s later on. Dry air continues in place. Our dew points are in the 20s in the hill country, 20s and 30s along and east of I-35. Chapstick type weather again today. We have a light east wind from I-35 westward, but we're still getting a northeast wind in east of I-35, but that'll change and everybody will have a light east wind for the rest of the afternoon. At 1 o'clock, we'll be in the lower 50s. We'll hit our highs between 3 and 4 o'clock today, mostly in the upper 50s, and by 9 o'clock, temperatures fall into mostly the 40s and 50s, and some of you might even have a clear sky as we get into 9 o'clock tonight. Still to come. Upcoming rain chances. We've got temperatures that will get back into the 60s. How long that'll last, and wind chills in the teens. When might that happen? We'll answer that coming up in just a few minutes. Avery?
Rich, thank you. We want to get back over to the Capitol. During this new legislative session, we know lawmakers are going to focus on a lot of things. We have covered many of them here at KXAN. One of those, though, being eminent domain.
We are continuing our investigative look at eminent domain. A neighborhood now in Round Rock would like Atmos to change its plans for an expanded gas pipeline. That pipeline is set to run under its land, homes, and businesses. This afternoon, we're joined now in the studio by KXAN's Mercedes Hernandez, who dug into what's behind this dispute. Hi there, Mercedes.
Hi there. Yes, good afternoon. Happy Ledge Day. First day back. It's very, very busy. Lots of moving parts. I know Will's going to knock it out of the park later. But yeah, there are quite a few eminent domain bills we're watching as the session goes on. And today I have a good example of why these lawmakers take such care with crafting those bills and those laws that regulate all of that. Now, the folks that you'll hear from live here off of East Old Settlers Boulevard in Round Rock. Now, those neighbors tell me that a deal made almost 100 years ago is really at the heart of this dispute. The wide open space behind Orlena Morabian's home looks more like a construction site than a rural landscape.
So I've been living here almost 30 years. And that's when they came out here and they just showed up one day.
That first visit was in 2021. But last spring, her family received this letter saying Atmos planned to replace a 4-inch gas line with a 16-inch line. To do that, it would need to take the land behind her home.
They're expanding the easement from 20 feet to 50 feet.
An easement is the right for a person or entity to access someone's land for a specific use. In this case, to run a natural gas pipeline. She says this easement is much bigger than she expected.
And this easement here is 257 acres.
Yeah, that's it.
More than a dozen other neighbors have signed letters against the plan. But when did Atmos get the easement rights? Atmos took over the easement from the Lone Star Gas Company, which this document shows bought the 257-acre easement for $39 in 1928, nearly 100 years ago.
Easements that are 100 years old are very limited in their language.
Chris Clough is an eminent domain lawyer. He says once an easement agreement is made, it's often difficult to break, even if you weren't part of the initial deal.
That's one of the most important things that they will insist on within the easement document, is that they don't lose their rights just by property owners selling the properties.
Morabian and her neighbors say if a bigger pipeline must go in, they'd like it to be rerouted away from their properties and instead along some smaller existing roads. As of this week, the line was still following the originally planned route.
I have no problem with Atmos routing it and going that way. It would be safer.
I asked Atmos for a comment, and it responded with this statement that said in part, even though we have all necessary property rights required to perform this project, we recognize that these types of construction projects can be disruptive to landowners. So we have contacted all landowners to make sure that the construction is as unintrusive as possible. Now, I spoke to the head of the House committee that oversees some eminent domain regulations here in Texas. In my original investigation, he says changes to those laws are never off the table, and there could be more this session. Hear that conversation in the article in the investigations tab of KXAN.com. Avery.
Mercedes, thank you so much for tracking that for us. Turning now to Washington, President-elect Donald Trump's controversial pick to lead the Department of Defense is on Capitol Hill today to take questions from senators.
And that hearing is well underway. Senators are asking questions, though, about Pete Hegseth's past behavior and whether he's fit to lead the more than 2 million American service members. Hegseth will need 51 votes in the Senate to be confirmed to his post, but he faces allegations that he mismanaged a veterans organization's funds and drank excessively. He has also denied those allegations and promised not to drink any alcohol if he's confirmed to the post.
3 sources told NBC News that Hegseth's FBI background check does not include interviews with any of his former wives, nor the woman who accused him of sexual assault in 2017. The prosecutor did not file charges in that case. Now, Republicans have a 3-seat majority in the Senate to confirm Trump's nominees. Overnight, members of Congress were sent a section of Special Counsel Jack Smith's report that summarizes the investigation into what he calls President-elect Donald Trump's unprecedented criminal effort to hold on to power following the 2020 election.
Smith says the government had enough evidence to convict Trump had he not been reelected to president. The report spans more than 100 pages and details the pressure that Trump put on state officials and on his own vice president to overturn the 2020 results. Plus, there is a focus on Trump's encouragement of the January 6th rioters.
The historic case was set to go to a jury in Washington, if not for the department's long-standing policy against prosecuting a sitting president. The report reads, the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution, which the office stands fully behind.
President-elect Trump pled not guilty to these charges, consistently accusing the Justice Department of targeting him unfairly while using this investigation to his political advantage during his re-election campaign.
Whoever heard you get indicted for interfering with a presidential election where you have every right to do it, you get indicted and your poll numbers go up.
Trump did respond to the report in a series of social media posts overnight. He railed against Jack Smith and wrote that, quote, Jack is a lame-brained prosecutor who was unable to get his case tried before the election.
Smith, defending himself and his team, wrote a letter that accompanied the report. It read in part, to all who know me well, the claim from Mr. Trump that my decisions as a prosecutor were influenced or directed by the Biden administration is, in a word, laughable.
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to KXAN News at Noon. The time is 12:17, and we're showing you a live look inside the Texas House of Representatives. Right now, the Texas Secretary of State, Jane Nelson, is delivering remarks before she presides over the opening day of the House there at the Texas State Capitol. She has already gabbled in that session. Things will be starting here shortly, and we'll be tracking those contentious votes, the ones that a lot of us are watching for Texas House Speaker.
We'll be following it all day, and at 4 o'clock you can tune in for live coverage of what has happened here on the first day of session. Will is going to be hosting that along with our amazing KXAN team. Okay, turning to more news now. A big problem for America's fast-growing space industry. Not enough launch pads to handle a huge surge in rocket launches for NASA, the military, and commercial space companies like SpaceX.
NBC's Tom Costello takes a look at how the U.S. is trying to help relieve the congestion in a new space economy.
Ignition and liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V.
From Boeing Starliner to Crew 9, launching from Florida.
Liftoff of Crew 9.
From Texas and SpaceX's mega Starship test flights to dozens of Falcon 9 Starlink satellite launches. The U.S. launched a record 145 rockets to orbit in 2024. SpaceX alone accounted for 95% of those. And this year, it's only going to get busier, with what the Wall Street Journal calls a traffic jam forming at 3 critical launch pads in Florida and California approved for big rockets.
I think it's going to be intense.
Now, smaller launch sites like the Pacific Spaceport on Kodiak Island, Alaska, are marketing themselves as faster and cheaper.
Now's the time because we offer availability. We can take a customer and get them up on time. We're not congested.
Blue Origin Van Horn, Texas launch that is scheduled between 13:30 and 21:30 Zulu.
At the FAA's command center, managing air traffic congestion around rocket launches in Florida, California, and Texas is a daily challenge. Experts say the U.S. needs more spaceports to compete in the new global space race. George Neild retired as a top space expert at the FAA. How critical is it that the country is able to build out new spaceports?
Space is very critical for our national security, for our economic competitiveness, for inspiration for our students and our future workforce, and frankly, to support our everyday life. Communications, navigations, weather forecasts, agriculture, financial transactions.
Meanwhile, an update from the space station and 2 astronauts who left in June on a 10-day mission but are now staying until the end of March. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams insist they're both healthy and busy.
Now we have plenty of clothes. We are well fed.
No, it doesn't feel like we're a castaway. Yeah, eventually we want to go home because we left our families a little while ago, but we have a lot to do while we're up here.
We are looking at a live view from the Lorenz and Lorenz 360 camera out at Westlake. A mostly cloudy sky being reported there and across most of the region. Today's pollen count, cedar low, mold low. Yesterday, cedar count was 34 grains per cubic meter of air. Today, down to 16, and the mold count is below 2,300. Our forecast high temperatures today on a day where the normal is 62 will mostly be in the upper 50s, just like we had yesterday. Meanwhile, low temperatures will be much warmer because we'll have that blanket of clouds that we didn't have this morning. We're going to look at mostly 30s in the hill country and mostly 40s from the eastern hill country. We're talking Burnett, Marble Falls, Blanco across the I-35 and into our eastern viewing area. And then highs tomorrow will be in the 50s for most. Tomorrow there'll be more cloud cover in the morning into the early afternoon, and then there may be a little bit of clearing coming. And that's why we're looking at a little bit of a warmer profile tomorrow for some of our high temperatures out in the hill country. All right, today, again, a lot of cloud cover. There may be some minor clearing out to the west, but I don't think we'll see that much as the computer suggests. And then we have just spotty showers starting maybe at about 6 to 7 o'clock this evening, going through the overnight period to tomorrow morning. Our model wants to clear a lot of this cloud cover out during the day Wednesday, but I think, again, with sufficient moisture in the upper flow aloft, that we may see some of that cirrus cloud cover maintain itself through Wednesday afternoon. All right, we want to fast forward to Saturday morning. At 7:30, the cold front will be moving out of Oklahoma, and it heads to Dallas by 10 a.m. Temperatures still mild ahead of it. The front arrives in the Austin area between noon and 1 o'clock. That mild air continues even behind the front briefly, and then the cold air will settle in late Saturday afternoon into Saturday night, continuing on to Sunday and Monday. Right now, the forecast is dry for the weekend, so that's good news. By Monday night, we start seeing a disturbance form along the lower portion of the Texas coast that may lead to a little precipitation in the lower valley. This is Tuesday at noon. Now, right now, as we mentioned earlier in the 11 o'clock show, we're not really buying this weather solution for Monday and Tuesday just yet. But in future forecast models that come out, that may change. Just keep abreast of changing weather as you go through your day. Clouds today, 58 with an east wind at 5. 57 tomorrow with a chance of rain in the morning. 60s Thursday, Friday, Saturday, mostly mid to upper in that period. And then we're in the 40s on Sunday. We drop to a low of 24 in town Monday morning, which means several in the outlying areas will be in the upper teens to low 20s. Wind chills will be in some single digits in the hill country to some lower teens from I-35 eastward, and only 41 for the high in town Monday, which means in the outlying areas not getting out of the 30s. Will?
An Austin ISD school campus shut down in 2020 is now being repurposed. It just needs final approval from the school board. Trustees will vote on January 30th on whether to approve a long-term lease with the United Way of Greater Austin to use Peace Elementary. Under the plan, United Way will operate a year-round early childhood education center there. United Way's presentation said the center is going to serve 130 infants through pre-K and children there and prioritize underserved populations. United Way's goal is to have the center open in 2 years after renovations. This is a look at the renderings shared by the project. Public comment is scheduled for this Thursday and on the 30th before the vote.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News at Noon.
Happening right now inside the Texas Capitol building, the 89th legislative session is now underway. We've also got eyes inside the House chamber where lawmakers are actually at this moment being sworn into office. We see them with their hands raised. They are taking that oath of office. Those are some of the first things on the agenda, but we're watching closely to that chamber in particular because we know one of the biggest things on the agenda today is the vote for House Speaker.
That is still to come, and of course we'll be following that very closely when numbers come out for there. But we want to check in now with KXAN's Barrett Tryon, who is joining us live once again this afternoon from the Texas Capitol. And Barrett, remind us about the stakes for that race. Who all is involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you might remember Dade Phelan said he was not going to run again. So it really came down to two candidates, Dustin Burrows and David Cook. Now, Cook actually won that House GOP caucus nomination back in December. But despite that, Burrows said he was going to run, saying he had enough votes from both sides of the aisle. There are caucus rules, though, that say Republicans are supposed to back their nominees. So that's why there is such intense focus on what will happen. And anything could happen literally in a matter of minutes. It could be hours as to what happens with that race. Now, we have heard about one defection, and it is coming from freshman Senator Caroline Fairley. I want to read something from an email that she sent out. Some pretty sharp words here. She says, well, most of my freshman colleagues will vote for Mr. Cook due to this pressure. Many have privately shared that they believe Representative Burrows is the better and more conservative choice, but feel intimidated by threats of well-funded primary challenges. So that is just her take on what's going on. She defecting and saying that she plans to put her vote for Burrows. But again, this is a watching and waiting game, Will and Avery, as to what could happen. And with the first day just underway here for the last half hour or so, it is just a matter of time we might have that kind of decision.
Barrett, thanks for following it for us. It's a lot quieter there in the rotunda than it was about an hour ago when folks were filtering into those chambers. We know things are proceeding in both the Senate and the House. Talk to us a little bit about what you saw this morning. We know people have some strong feelings about this race for Speaker. I know you were reporting on some folks who had come to protest and express their opinion about it. So tell us a little bit about what you were seeing in the rotunda earlier.
Yeah, sure. There were very bright red shirts that said no Democratic chairs, and those were members of local different counties across the state, GOP leaders coming in. They were bussed in here to the state capitol today. They created some very long lines in the security on that day one, but a lot of them, they were making their voices heard, especially they were chanting. There were some prayers, some presentations that were happening in the rotunda behind me. But yeah, absolutely, that was a huge part. It has quieted down, though, at least in the last hour or so.
Barrett, we are still waiting for that speaker's vote to happen at this point. We're monitoring those feeds very closely, but can you talk about what the team's resources here at KXAN will be in the days ahead, or in the hours ahead, I should say, because Dylan McKim is there at the Capitol covering things too with you.
Yeah, so he's actually inside the House chamber right now. We're right outside of it. I know that you, will actually be talking to Representative Fairley coming up today at 4 o'clock, which is kind of get her input on how she thinks day one went, especially as a freshman state representative. But yeah, we have crews all over the place, and of course on KXAN.com. So when a speaker is chosen and we know that final vote, of course, we'll make sure you're signed up for alerts on the KXAN app because we'll bring it to you.
First warning weather.
Lots to cover there, Barrett. Thank you so much. And to the whole team, it's going to be a busy day. So we're going to take a nice relaxing look out at the lake to give us a breather from what's going on downtown. Not quite as many people out there on the lake today.
Yeah, what we're seeing, though, is some cold temperatures as well, Rich, out there, and clouds hanging around today.
Yeah, I call that my moment of zen. Usually I like showing the lake video, the lake cameras when we get into the heat of the summer. And it's like, oh gosh, there's the relaxing waters of Marble Falls and Lake Travis. Today it's just a lot of cloud cover, and we could see that on clouds and radar. No rain falling underneath these clouds, but it's a lot of cirrus cloudiness that we're seeing this early Tuesday afternoon, and will continue for most of the area through the day. Hill country temperatures in the upper 40s to low 50s. Pretty uniform across the entire area now. In our metro communities, the lower half of the 50s, 51 at Camp Mabry, 51 at San Marcos, 52 out at Wimberley. And off to the east, we are in the 50s. Looks like area-wide, except for a couple of reporting stations still in the upper 40s in the southern part of Fayette County. For the afternoon, a lot of cloud cover again, but no precipitation today. Rain returns to our forecast tonight, and most of our daytime highs today will peak in the upper 50s. I don't think anybody gets to 60 degrees today. We'll talk about our upcoming rain chances. That's very little. Temperatures will return to the 60s, and then over the weekend, a cold front comes in, and for those that are making plans for MLK Day, just know it's going to be very cold. Avery?
Rich, we want to get now to the latest on the devastating wildfires in California, responsible for at least 24 deaths so far and the destruction of more than 12,000 homes and other structures.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom is proposing billions in additional funding to help with emergency response efforts. That region, though, is on high alert today as powerful Santa Ana winds are expected to kick up again. NBC's Morgan Chesky has the latest.
Extreme winds whipping up flames in Southern California overnight, sparking a new blaze, the auto fire in Ventura County, burning through brush and forcing evacuation orders. First responders racing to contain it. As across the region, they mount an all-out attack to control the much larger fires that have devastated entire sections of Los Angeles. With those Santa Ana winds ramping back up overnight and due to peak today. 13 million people under red flag warnings. The National Weather Service calling the conditions about as bad as it gets. As investigators search the area looking for a cause, multiple law enforcement sources tell NBC News that an early focus is a possible human cause of the fire, though no conclusions have been reached. A week after the firestorms exploded, homes in the Pacific Palisades burn zone are still smoldering. Crews putting out hotspots here and in Altadena. Officials urging residents to stay out of evacuation zones.
People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors.
As thousands of families search for places to stay, the district attorney is vowing to prosecute illegal price gouging. But realtors and families we met say they're seeing homes go for thousands above asking.
We're going to find a house, I promise. I promise we'll find it.
The Palmentier family, including their Papa Paulo, just one of dozens packing an open house in Santa Monica after flames consumed their beloved Palisades home.
Everybody's going to have 100 applications, and they're going to pick one, and hopefully they pick you.
A city on edge, searching for answers as deadly winds still threaten.
NBC's Morgan Chesky reporting there. Firefighters from all over Central Texas are already in California helping to fight those wildfires.
One group arrived late Sunday night to join the fight. Williamson County Emergency Services District 5 and Jarrell Fire and Rescue posted photos showing a caravan with a strike team deployed to the Los Angeles area over the weekend. Austin Fire says a strike team has also been assigned to the Palisades fire. That's the biggest fire burning right now in the Los Angeles area. Firefighters from Central Texas will be there for up to 21 days. Pflugerville Fire Department also posted that they have arrived to help with these fires too. President Joe Biden gave an update on the federal response to the disaster in Southern California as these wildfires are still burning across parts of LA. Already the cost of the damage is in the tens of billions of dollars.
The president says for now the federal government is covering 100% of those relief efforts. The president gave that update yesterday and pledged continued federal resources even as he only has a few days left as president. Biden also announced that emergency checks of $770 per person for anyone impacted by the fire. He said the federal government will continue to cover the entire cost of the disaster for the next 6 months.
The president again called on Congress to approve emergency money for relief.
Although the federal government is going to cover 100% of the cost for the next 180 days for things like firefighter overtime pay, debris removal, temporary shelters, it's going to cost tens of billions of dollars to get Los Angeles back to where it was. So we're going to need Congress to step up to provide funding to get this done.
Now, it's unclear right now whether President-elect Donald Trump will allow the government to cover the cost entirely when he becomes president on Monday.
There is perhaps some good news coming out of Los Angeles now. Celebrities and businesses alike are stepping in to help. The singer Beyonce announced a $2.5 million donation on Sunday to help out families who lost their homes. Disney also pledged to donate $15 million and would like to spread that across several groups. There are also plans of a benefit concert to happen maybe on January 30th. No lineup or ticket information has been released just yet. Organizers say the money raised there will help those affected by the fires and support efforts to prevent any future disasters.
You are taking a live look inside the Texas House of Representatives. Those lawmakers actually just a few minutes ago took the oath of office as they gavel in for the 89th legislative session. The next thing on deck we are eyeing is the big contentious vote for House Speaker. We'll be following that. We have crews reporting from the Capitol, some inside the chamber and some out. We also will have a full live report coming up at 4 p.m. to break it all down. So we'll continue to check in here as the action begins at the Texas Capitol. Turning now, the state of California helped Hawaii during the deadly Maui wildfires. Now Hawaii wants to return the favor. Stephen Florino reports.
When Lahaina was destroyed by fire, Hawaii officials say California was there to help. They say now is our turn to do the same.
We're going to try to do a lot to support Los Angeles. And the reason is because, first, we care about people, but also they supported us. California supported us a great deal when we went through the Maui wildfire disaster.
When these fires are out, some Hawaii hotels will offer packages for first responders from California, like firefighters, police, and emergency services personnel that would be severely discounted or even free.
We have a very close cultural, economic, social relationship in Los Angeles, so it's a natural step to see how we can acknowledge those heroes on the front line.
After the fires are over, an option or a possibility to come to Hawaii, spend some time here at a very, very discounted rate because, you know, they're going through a lot right now, and we know to a certain extent because of what happened on Lahaina.
Hawaii hotels did the same for local first responders during COVID with Hotels for Heroes and then extended the offer to healthcare workers as well.
I would say 40% of our mainland business comes from California, maybe even a little more from the West Coast. So is it going to impact the travel to Hawaii? You know, probably.
No doubt. Officials say Hawaii understands what California is going through right now, and Hawaii knows how to show aloha.
I think that's what we're noted for. Hawaii has always had this compassionate feel that people always talk about, and when they come here, they go back home and they talk about it some more.
Tokioka says Governor Green has already spoken to California Governor Gavin Newsom about ways to help, and Tokioka has a counterpart in California he's working with.
They'll remember this. The government in California will remember this, and however they can support us going forward, I'm sure they will, because they always have.
Stephen Florino, KXAN 2 News, working for Hawaii.
Just devastating images coming out of that area. But back here at home, it is taking quite the turn. We've had some gorgeous days here.
Yeah, you know, we're seeing a little bit of a turn today with the clouds, but that's really about it. The big turn will happen as we've been talking for the last couple of days. Over the weekend, clouds and a little blue sky noticed in high Texas this afternoon. High between Johnson City and Fredericksburg in the beautiful hill country. This is the Covington Cellars view. And that building that you see is the wine tasting room out in high Texas. Our temperatures by the afternoon will peak mostly in the upper half of the 50s on a day where the normal high is 62. We're going to go about 56 to 59 for most of the area this afternoon. Then at 9 o'clock, we'll drop into the 40s to some 50s, 40s, where there may have been a little more of a clearing during the late afternoon for our hill country communities. And then by tomorrow morning, most of our lows in the hill country will be in the 30s. The rest of the area from I-35 mostly in the 40s. And then tomorrow afternoon, it just depends on how much of the morning cloud cover tomorrow clears as to where your temperatures are going. It looks like we see more of that in the hill country where some highs will be in the lower 60s. So we're going to be mild all the way through Saturday. We have a little rain possible tonight through tomorrow morning, and then by tomorrow afternoon, again, we see a little bit of that clearing, but the clouds will return on Friday with a few showers possible late Friday afternoon into Friday evening. Right now, it's just a 10% likelihood. The change comes on Saturday, 10 a.m. Saturday, the front entering the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Still the air mild here. We'll have some readings Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in the 40s and 50s. Then the front gets in by now the update model says about 12 to 1 o'clock, maybe a little after that. Still mild through the early afternoon, but cold late in the afternoon as that north wind will continue to move through into the area. No precipitation for us at all over the weekend into early next week, but there could be some coming in the middle of next week. Model runs are completely not even close to being in sync with each other, so we'll just keep the forecast through Monday dry. As we look to Tuesday, again, I'm not really convinced that we'll see some snow in the lower valley. I think it's going to be dry on Tuesday for most. So in detail, 58 today, 57 tomorrow with a chance of rain in the morning, 65 sun and fair weather clouds on Thursday, 68, a bit more cloud cover on Friday. Cloud cover will clear out Friday night to Saturday morning. Saturday will be sunny, Sunday partly cloudy, 60 Saturday, 40 Sunday, 20s and maybe some teens Monday morning, 30s and 40s for MLK Day on Monday.
We are taking a live look now from inside the Texas Senate. We just heard from Governor Greg Abbott a few moments ago and the Lieutenant Governor as well, as procedure is getting underway, not only here in the Senate, but also over in the House of Representatives. We're watching closely for that vote for Speaker of the House in the other side. But here we can see Tan Parker speaking to the group here inside the Senate. We'll be following all of the updates from the Texas Capitol as they continue on this first day of the 89th legislative session. Some more news for you. Starbucks announced plans to introduce a new code of conduct that will go into effect on January 27th.
The coffee chain says it was refreshing a policy that invited everyone into its stores. Now you will have to purchase something to sit in there. The new policy also bans discrimination or harassment, consumption of outside alcohol, smoking, vaping, drug use, and panhandling. A Starbucks spokesperson said the new rules are designed to help prioritize paying customers.
Starbucks initially implemented the open door policy in 2018 after two black men were arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks where they had gone for a business meeting. The individual store had a policy of asking non-paying customers to leave, and the men had not bought anything, but the arrest became a major embarrassment and talking point on these issues for the company. So a little bit behind the change there. Back here at home, it's a little cloudier than it has been. We had some beautiful days there for a while.
Yes, we did. The weekend was really spectacular. Today, though, a lot of cloud cover blending with what little sun that we may see, and most bus drop-off time, no. Temps will be in the 50s under a mostly cloudy sky.
Rich, thank you so much. Okay, we've got to let Will go because he is preparing to host a live show out at the Capitol later on at 4. You don't want to miss that. A full wrap of what's gone on the first day of this 89th legislative session here in Texas. Thanks for watching us, though, here at noon. We do have more news and weather coming up in just about 30 minutes. And, of course, you can track all of it online at KXAN.com.